I haven't been on Reddit for 1 minute. I wonder what I missed.
Bellows said that mixing magic was wrong, so he created the Coven system. And there our knowledge was restricted, and our potential sealed away.
Oh my god, restrictions bad, freedom good, everything sucks under monarchy. Unless they're selling it. Merchandise King, finally talking like a normal person, is aggressively winking at the audience.
That say he's planning something big. I wonder if catching Ida was part of his big plan.
I Am Vengeance Loose has an axe to grind with Lilith and wants to rescue Ida. King is worried this will get all the people he loves killed. I said everyone he loves. Ominously hold on that shot of Bellows, cutting to the heart of the matter, where Ida the Were-Owl is tearing up everything, till her bitch of a sister puts her in a bubble. Soft-spoken Bellows finally comes in. He has a techno staff. Let the theory crafting begin about that one. Bringing Ida's brain back into the building, she recognizes she's fucked, and the Emperor has only one thing on his mind. I want the portal. Kiss my ass. A bit old for my tastes. Fuck you, I'm 32. Women are either in their early 20s or in their 40s with kids. There's no TV in between. Can we fix her now? Kinda burnt a lot of bridges to fix my mistakes, so... Remember when I said you'd be able to get stoned together?
Edalyn Clawthorn's body shall be petrified in stone.
Everyone is finding out about Ida's death sentencing, while Luce is plotting revenge. King has an idea of how they might be able to get into prison with Ida. Seems ridiculous, till you realize people have been killed for less. Off to prison, Warden Nice Guy from the first episode, who is also Ida's stalker, plans to exact his revenge on Luce for getting rejected, except Luce came to kick ass and draw circles, and she's all stocked up on paper. Outside, the city gathers to watch Ida turn into a statue, Gus and Willow included, who are gonna stand around and pretend they're gonna do something. Lilith can't watch this plot fizzle out, so she heads back into the dungeon to fight Luce, who is on a kill streak, having finally found Ida but can't set her free, as these chains are childproof. Ida tells Luce that it's okay. She lived a hell of a life, and that life finally caught up to her. Giving the human the portal key, our queen gets taken away to die. Cries are interrupted by a billboard brow, triggering kill mode. Lilith keeps trying to talk, but she ain't the main character, so it doesn't work. Forced into the human world, where, surprise surprise, Luce's magic also doesn't work. But Lilith, hers does. She finally gets a chance to explain her actions. Back in the day, when they were both adorable, the sisters were the best of friends, sharing everything, laugh, pain, even sharing an autumn color scheme. There was just one problem. Ida was better than Lilith, and there was only one spot available in the preppy coven. Desperate, she bought some bootleg spell that she thought would just take away her sister's magic for a day to let her win. Except that day turned out to be forever, and Ida was going to throw the match for her anyway. And feeling like an idiot sandwich, she devoted the rest of her life trying to fix that mistake, which meant bringing Ida to the Emperor, who, surprise surprise, is an asshole. Not able to sit by and watch her sister get petrified, she asked Luce for help, even giving her Ida's staff to show how serious she is. Now back to the magic world, where the starter pack friends are freaking out over their oncoming irrelevance. Wait, Gus, isn't that your dad? What makes you think he's my dad? What about our physical appearance makes you think we're connected in any way? Well, you're both have this great hair?
Your silver tongue has gotten you out of yet another scrape, Smith.
The suspicious techno-magic device is about to get used on Ida. But beneath that, Lilith and Luce have run into the Emperor, who ports Lil to her sister to get some one-on-one time with the human. Willow gives her big speech about standing up for what's right. Everyone talks about how much better their lives are thanks to Ida, though the people that are saying this are an escaped convict and her drug dealer, so...
She helped me love teaching again. After she left.
Best lines in the show, consistently this guy. Back down below with Bellows, who can manifest flesh golems, is owning Luce, who gets in one good sneak attack. He's fine though. He can now cosplay as Sans. He gives Luce a simple choice, give him the portal or let Ida get petrified. Cracking, she gives him what he wants. But even he can't stop talking directly to the audience.
You probably think we want to invade the human realm, but the Titan's will is not so boorish.
Luce burns the briefcase, they have a staring contest, and Luce saves the day. Lilith takes half the curse onto herself, bringing Ida out of her owl form, but she still has no magic. We end with Luce now trapped in this world, and the show finally feels like it's telling the story that it wants to tell. Also, Bellis is building the Gravity Falls portal in his basement. I hereby proclaim that this episode was solid. But if I'm being honest, this felt more like a mid-season finale than the climax to the season. The Owl House's mirror gem, if you will. Shit just got real, things will never be the same, except it probably will, and it's more about building to something farther down the road. Still very entertaining though, despite the serious lack of confused teen romance. But hey, there's always later. So, just general thoughts. I think the opening with King giving us the real history of the world wasn't needed. We got the official story from the last episode, which was so obviously a lie that it's like, okay, whatever they said, the opposite happened. Pretty easy assumption to make. I didn't need it to be repeated, like, oh no, this is the real story. I was like, no, we got it the first time. But obviously it's a good little reminder for anyone that didn't watch all these episodes back to back. Now for Luce, I expected her to want to save Ida, kind of expected her to mull it over for a little bit longer, but I didn't expect how much she would hate Lilith in this episode, which I thought was so, I guess like it was cathartic almost, because I'm so used to in TV shows, and especially TV shows aimed at like a younger audience, that those negative emotions like anger, spite, they get like sanitized, like they're always treated as a bad thing, when really they're just kind of part of being human, and just always treating them as being negatives does everyone such a disservice. Now, for just something that I want to point out for the channel, I feel like the comedy in Owl House is hit or miss. There are some really good jokes, but then there's also ones that like, okay, you're starting to beat a dead horse here, or they come off as being too mean-spirited, usually when it's directed at Hootie. But this episode's comedy was... Also, I wasn't expecting Luce to be as badass as she was. She was cleaning house with these grunts, and I was like, oh boy. I knew she was getting good at magic, but I didn't realize how good she had gotten. Though I do question, how do these spell circles work exactly? Because based on what we see, I always thought that the spell circles did one thing, like how the ice spell created these platforms, and its size depended on how big the spell circle she drew. But here, it's not like that, because instead of doing like platforms, she creates spears. And with like the vine spell, she's able to like wrap people around, she's able to like tie people up. So like, does she have a measure of control over this? Like she just needs the symbols, and then she, based on her intent, it then changes to suit what she needs? Or is she using a different sign entirely? Because I feel like we've been introduced like, okay, she can draw spells, she can draw these glyphs. But we've kind of like been winging out like, okay, but how does this actually work? Like, how much control does she really have? Now, it's not really a problem, it's just like, I feel like we just skipped a step. Well, I can't wait for it to be more fully explored later. King was also in this episode, and thank God he came back as an actual character. Because honestly, I feel like ever since Luce went to school, he's kind of been demoted to the team pet. Or like in that initial part of the series, he felt like he was like the third main character of him, Ida, and Luce. He feel like he's just been demoted to kind of like his bare bones, like, oh, he's the annoying kind of cute little thing. But it's good to see him back in the more positive light where he's actually more contributing and being the more knowledgeable one of this, like, okay, he's lived here his entire life. He knows what's going on. He's not the brightest tool in the shed, but he knows how to get into trouble, and he always is trying to do his best to help out, which I really was glad to see that characterization brought back, because I do not like annoying comedy King. It just doesn't hit for me. Though even at his best, he still can't live up to the scene stealer that is Ida, who frankly kinda should be the main character of the show. And if she was, the only complaint we'd get is that she wasn't Amity. Ida's relationship with Luce is great, because it's only with Luce do we see that sarcastic free spirit open up to someone else. The Owl Lady fully accepted her fate. She knew, like, okay, I've lived a crazy life, I've done some shady stuff. The law was eventually gonna catch up with me. I can accept this, but I'm not gonna let Luce get dragged down with me. She was not going to let Luce get hurt, which I love so much because it shows that great depth to her character, that she truly cares for Luce, not just like as a human pet, not just as a student. She's like, you are basically my daughter. I have adopted you into my family, and I'm not gonna let anyone hurt you. Ida is the best mentor figure in animation right now. Fight me on that. Speaking of fights, Lilith is in the fight of her life as she tries to justify her actions. Because, oh my god, after that last episode, oh, we hated her. Well, I didn't hate her, the fans hate her, so I pretended to hate her. But in this episode, we finally learned the why and the why this bitch cursed her own sister. The answer to which was insecurity. Need a character to do something shitty but still want us to like her? Just make her insecure. Because that will make us forgive just about anything. But seriously, Lilith's choice to betray her sister was pretty in line with her character. This was no like, oh, I always secretly hate her. No, this was Lilith being desperate. She needed to win. And more importantly, she didn't realize the curse she was gonna cast was permanent. And basically has spent her entire life since then trying to make up for her mistake. But she never owned up to it. So when she's left with no easy way out, when Bellos basically says, nah, I never cared, she's not really ever gonna work with us, so we're just gonna turn her to stone, Lilith lost her way of undoing what she did. So she finally stopped running and took responsibility by taking half the curse onto herself. And the instant that I saw that spell used at the beginning of the flashback, I was like, okay, I see what you're gonna do here. I kinda wish they telegraphed that earlier with like maybe Ida choosing the spell on Luce in some way, but it's whatever. I feel like they could have at least known a healing spell. Like, do they really have to like, oh, I could heal you, but what if I give half the pain to myself and so we're both suffering? I'm like, no, just go get the healing spell. Like, get some ointment. You can fix her right up. Now, she didn't make up for everything that she did, but I do think this will be the start of them repairing their relationship. And I can't wait to see that drama unfold. And I wonder, will Lilith be incorporated into the outhouse? Will she start living with everyone? Or will she be off on her own, trying to find her own way of undoing the spell till they eventually come back together and have to really patch things up? A lot of possibilities, and I can't wait to see where they go with this. And speaking of possibilities, the standout for this episode was Emperor Bellos. Not Bellows, Bellos. Apparently that means beautiful in Mediterranean languages, which means he's probably ugly as shit underneath that mask. Now here is a villain I can get behind and hate. It's probably the voice, but what can I say? I'm a sucker for a deep voice. Congrats, Matthew Rhys. You nailed it. Now there are many things about Bellos that intrigue me, from his presentation as a prophet to his tech. Now, Bellos fills the typical evil overlord trope that we see in fantasy shows. Overlords to fantasy shows are like death to any Sean Bean character. You know it's coming, so it's all about execution. So how is Bellos different from all the other emperors? Well, for starters, he's remarkably soft-spoken, treating everything around him as a game rather than an actual threat. One particular aspect of this character that I find intriguing is that his presentation as less of an emperor and as like this god-like figure. Now, he presents himself as more of a prophet and positions himself as the instrument of its will, which is definitely a lie, but hey, dramatic effect. And this to me is a great way to affect his character, because usually it's the I am God, I am everything, you all should obey and serve me. But no, he's like, I am just doing what the Titan wants. I am doing everything right. But all of you people, I know I'm not the head honcho of everything, but you guys need to listen to me, because if you don't do what I say, the Titan, that thing, your God, he is going to mess us all up. And I love that because he has to play the crowd a little bit. He can't say, I always enjoy, because the standard evil overlord kind of has run its course in entertainment for the next 20 years, I think. So it's all about new interpretations of this same character trope, and so far I'm really digging his. Now, we know nothing about him. He could be anything. He could be a normal witch who somehow discovered the Titan, or he could be a human who's using tech to control magic, or he could just be a robot. Anything's on the table. We simply don't have enough information to make anything other than mass guessing. One thing we can say for certain though, is that we've never seen anything like Bellos' magic before. Because while other witches have a traditional feudal style magic, from the wooden staffs to scrolls and incantations, Bellos uses technology in conjunction with his magic. His staff is, rather than having a palanquin, is a techno staff with a lightning globe for dramatic effect. And this grants him immense magical power, not even needing to draw circles to use magic. Now his magic also seems to have a flesh-based component to it, which goes a long way to his I am the speaker of the Titan motif. Because it's as if he's using the flesh of the Titan to manifest hands and monsters, which I find to be very cool. It's very Akira for everyone that actually has seen that anime. And here's just a quick second to get out some of my wild theories. I think that Bellos is using magic to control the Titan's heart. I don't think he can use magic on his own. I think he's either super weak at it or he has no connection. So where we have Luce, who was able to naturally figure out how the ancient witches use magic to harness power from the Titan, he uses technology to force it. One thing I found interesting is that even though we see Belos use just his hands to use magic, I wonder, can he use it without his staff? Because I have a sneaking suspicion that the Belos Luce fights in the first half of the fight isn't really him, because we never see him use the staff. He only comes walking over to her with it later. So I'm wondering if he created like a flesh golem to like hide his position. That's how he was able to sink into the ground and reappear like that. So I think she was fighting a false version that he was then using the magic staff to control, to do like the hand motions, to not show the magic. Wild speculation on my part, but I just find it kind of fascinating to see there's small discrepancies in the way he uses it. Now, we don't know much, but I'm super interested to see where he goes. Though I am a little bit nervous, because as much as I like the techno magic he uses, I'm afraid that this might just be a surprise for a surprise sake, that if he does turn out to be human, it's like, oh, human was lost on the Isles. He basically becomes Amelia from the Infinity Train. And I feel like we've seen enough of those like small twists like that to where if it's being telegraphed this hard that Belos is in fact a normal person, I feel like then the reveal would be very underwhelming. I kind of want there to be more to it, because if we just get that standard twist, I kind of think he should have just been an evil overlord then. It just becomes simple complexity addiction. Sometimes it's just better to play a trope straight and to just ham it up for all it's worth. But hey, we'll just have to wait and see. He wants to enter the human world. We don't know what he's gonna do with that, but I'm very interested to see where that goes. Also, Jesus Christ, I almost forgot, Gus and Willow were in this episode, and they didn't do much. I mean, honestly, I'm starting to think that they're the starter friends. They're basically the Ida and Uraraka from My Hero Academia, where it seems like, okay, we're gonna get a trio here. They're gonna be the best, and they're gonna go all these adventures together, and they're all going to the background while the main character keeps running off. Like, I don't want to see that. Like, Gus has not won me over yet, but he has enough, like, one or two moments where I'm like, oh, he seems cool. I kind of want to see more of him, but Willow is like, no, I really like Willow. I want to see her get more screen time. I want her to be the focus of some more stories. I want to see her and how she rebuilds her relationship with Amity. And I really don't want them to become like non-factors in this. Also, calling it right now, that little thing that we saw at the end where Belle says, oh, we're going to watch them, is going to be some spy gonna befriend Luce, and then she's going to have this whole reveal where she's the traitor, then she's going to be not a traitor, and it's just going to be a whole lot of fun. It's going to be something interesting. But now to my final long-winded point, and my biggest complaint with Owl House, that has finally been fixed. And that former complaint was very simple. What is Owl House about? Like, what's the point of the show? In Amphibia, it's very simplistic. It's about Anne and her surrogate family on a quest to find her friends and get back home. Owl House, it's less clear. Luce's journey has just been crammed with wish fulfillment. She's been living out her personal fantasy of going on adventures and being an anime character. But it all has felt aimless. Because Luce, this isn't permanent for her. This is just her summer vacation where she's been doing all this with the expectation that she'd have to go back when summer ends. And I don't find a teen having only to then fuck off at the end to be very compelling. I mean, Gravity Falls does something similar to this, but there it had the mystery and intrigue of the journals to really keep us tied to the story, to make us want to find out what will happen next. The closest we ever have in the beginning to an overarching plot was Ida being pursued by the Emperor. Let's play as a joke 90% of the time, and it was always Ida's story, not Luce's. So my question is, what is Luce's story? What is her goal? What does she want? This to me was the minor but very important hole in the show. It lacked purpose. Luce didn't have that drive. Instead, we just jumped around from adventure to adventure. Instead, we just end up watching the show week to week, watching them jump from adventure to adventure in enjoyable romps, but it kind of just left us spinning with no idea of where the show wanted to go. It had a little hints of like, oh, we're building up to something, but only like, oh, this world is so huge, it's so big. I wonder what else is out there. And I'm like, okay, but where's the story for them? What's the story for the characters? I think that's part of the reason that we saw the fandom like lose their mind when the Luce and Amity romance started building up, besides just being representation. I think it helped because it gave us something to look forward to every week. It really just fueled our curiosity because now we had an idea of what might happen next. We had theory crafted. We had, oh, what do they need to do to make this happen? What the hell's gonna happen next? Suddenly, we had a direction. We had a purpose. Compared to before where we had no idea. It was just all about the world. It was all about, oh, there's just this huge place, great adventures to be had. It was a basic D&D style adventure, great enjoyment, but there was no hook. And because of that, I felt that the Owl House stumbled. And this was made especially more apparent when it was being watched right next to Amphibia, which has a similar setup, but a way more tightly written script with way better comedy. Now, it's important to note though, this was a problem. Because I think with this finale, Owl House has finally found that hook. It's found that purpose. It's given Luce that goal she's always needed. Luce has destroyed the portal. She is now trapped in the Boiling Isles. And the Empire has finally been built up to a credible threat. And it has its own goal. It wants to get to human worlds. So now we have these two forces that are after the same goal and are going to be competing for it. This show has stopped being about Luce going from one set of hijinks to the next. It's not a vacation anymore. The setup is done. And now, the show is finally ready to begin. And I couldn't be more hyped for season 2. I hope you all enjoyed my Owl House video. I'm gonna soon get around to reviewing and doing my sarcastic summaries of the other episodes. I started kind of midway through because I just wanted to kind of trail the release dates. But don't worry, I'm gonna get to them. I promise. I hope you guys enjoyed my thoughts, enjoyed what little of the sarcastic summary there was. But hey, tell me what you guys thought. Did you enjoy this episode of Owl House? Have you enjoyed the journey so far? Or do you think there's things that the show could work on? Or hell, tell me what you guys think of Emperor Bellos. What the hell do you think is his deal? And most importantly of all, please tell me how Hootie got screwed over by not being in this episode. I mean,
Come on, he's obviously the best character of all time. He's the long Furby that we've all needed in our lives. Come on, I mean,